Good morning and welcome back to News and Views right here on Salam Media with me, Salalo Makwidire. And we're going to be tackling one of the most pressing issues that South Africa has been struggling with for quite a long time now, as the country observes the 16 days of activism for no violence against women and children. We confront the ongoing gender-based violence pandemic that continues to plague our society. Despite declarations and pledges to tackle gender-based violence, the statistics remain devastating. Between April and September this year alone, over 2,500 women and children were murdered, an alarming average of around 14 lives lost each day. President Cyril Ramaphosa has once again called for collective action, emphasizing the need to change societal norms and dismantle deeply rooted sexism. And to discuss this, to discuss how we can address this crisis, we are joined by Dr. Shaheda Omar. She's the clinical director at the Teddy Bear Foundation, and an organization that has long championed the protection and support for vulnerable women and children. Dr. Omar, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome to Salam Media. Really appreciate you giving us your time this morning.
Thank you.
I think first and foremost, the statistics. I think it was earlier this week, around Tuesday or Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. The statistics presented by Police Minister Senzo Mchunu have painted quite a grim picture of gender-based violence in South Africa. How would you describe the current state of GBV in the country, particularly from your vantage point at the Teddy Bear Foundation? Because there's been numerous campaigns, from government, from the private sector, to try and raise awareness, to try and educate people about gender-based violence, and to educate particularly young men on the effects thereof. But it almost feels like the message is just not landing.
Thank you for that. So I think if we just look at violence against children, and if we look at how many children are being killed on a daily basis, at least 3 children, every 4 to 5 hours, a child goes missing. And these are harsh realities, but we're also seeing that crime is escalating within the home environment, within schools, and in the community as well. So children are left unprotected, and they are powerless. They're the most marginalized and vulnerable group who cannot stand up, speak out, fight back. Unfortunately, as you say, this is not a 16-day activism. It should be a 365-day campaign. And the more we continue doing the same thing, we are going to get the same results. So for far too long, we've excluded the boy child and the man. And in order to break or disrupt the scourge of violence, one has to bring them on board. It's got to be inclusive, ensuring that they start championing the fight against gender-based violence, where they come up with solutions. Because I think it's important, nothing about us without us. Most of the perpetrations have been conducted by boys and men. And I think this is where we need to sit with both boys, men, girls, and women and work out with them. What do they see as the way forward? What are the possibilities on breaking the cycle and preventing this intergenerational pattern of violence? I think a lot more work needs to be done. But as you've said, government is doing a lot, but government on its own, the private sector on its own, and civil society on its own cannot break the cycle. It's important that all the different parts come together, that it's an organized whole, there's collaboration, and then there's a partnership and coordination in responding to what we are experiencing on the ground.
And I think you're touching on a very, very important note, the sexism part of it, particularly when it comes to educating the boy child. And it almost links to what President Cyril Ramaphosa highlighted, the fact that societal beliefs, particularly from, black and brown people of South Africa, there are societal beliefs that are, can be considered rude causes of gender-based violence. From your clinical experiences, how do these cultural and economic factors perpetuate violence against women and children? And is there a way to mitigate them and work around them?
So you've raised what is of grave concern. the systemic challenges that we are faced. It's not a linear thing, because we've got to factor in, like you said, cultural beliefs and the gendered stereotypes, the norms and gendered stereotypes that we have, where there's preferential treatment given to males, and of course the male is supposed to be the protector, the predator, the one who actually takes care of everything, and the female is supposed to be submissive, subdued, and has to take instructions, and the female is seen to be the nurturer. And I think that's something I want to focus on, because if we look at how we culturally, and even if we look at traditions, how females are raised as to their male counterparts, females are expected to do specific chores. There are clarified, stipulated roles and expectations in terms of cleaning, doing household chores, in terms of assisting with cooking and other things. But with the male child, there isn't that expectation. There's that preferential treatment that the boy or the male child that is not expected to do household chores. The male child is given preferential treatment for further education and opportunities. And I think we have to dispel, until we do not analyze our values and attitudes and dispel and debunk these myths and misconceptions, we're going to find that it's going to be a perpetuation of the cycle. But also the way we raise our children is very important, because raising girls in a certain way, where girls then start raising their families in that same way. Remember, it's a female, it's a mother raising both girl and boy child, and they then re-socialize their children in the same way. And I think those are critical aspects. But you also asked about socioeconomic, the economic structures, and we know that the risk factors where there's poverty, unemployment, and survival issues, people, because of survival, are going to resort to crime. And we find that males are more likely to gravitate towards criminal activities, where we're seeing robbery, murder, attempted murder. And we also see with your children that the crimes at schools, where so many learners have violated other learners, and they're also responsible for bullying, gang violence, and attempted murder and murder at school. I think that is something, and the grievous bodily harm, the physical assault, the intention to do grievous bodily harm and rape. These are committed by children, and we need to ask the question, where are children acquiring this? How are they internalizing this? Where are they learning this? Children are a microcosm of the macrocosm. And the other risk factors is that children are surrounded by violence, whether it's domestic violence, community violence, and when they start identifying with the aggressors, and that is what they assimilate into their behavior. So gender-based violence requires a systemic approach to intervention, working with the different parts of society as a collective whole. It's a whole of society approach. It's not a one-man show.
No, definitely. And I want to touch a bit now on, support structures for survivors. Excuse me. Survivors, often face challenges when seeking help. It's not a secret, particularly from, the law enforcement agencies, the SAPS. Are there, current support systems, whether, legal, psychological, and social, that we currently have? Are they adequate? And what more needs to be done to have them at a level where people can be confident to say, even if I experience just a slight attempt at gender-based violence, because that's where it starts, a little shove here and there, a little slap there, I would be confident enough to go to law enforcement agencies, and the correct measures would be taken. And I won't be told, go fix it at home. What did you do, that led to him or her, punching you or hitting you, or, you can fix this as a family, or, that kind of rhetoric that's always thrown around. And we hear victims of gender-based violence always quoting when they try to go out there and seek support.
We look at the whole approach of gender-based violence and the resources. Yes, there are resources, but I think the responses that are received or elicited by law enforcement is often discouraging, because when victims and survivors and their families go and report this, the manner in which it's addressed is often stigmatizing the victim, or the victim feels blamed, shamed, named, and this discourages and deters victims from getting any kind of support or help. And I think a lot more needs to be done in terms of sensitizing law enforcement officials, but anybody working with victims and survivors, the first responder, needs to be trained accordingly, and the responses should be appropriate, adequate, and timely.
Definitely, definitely, and I think it's going to be interesting how that aspect, particularly, is being, looked at with the microscope, because where else are victims of gender-based violence supposed to go? One of the things that the president has called for in his address, when launching the 16 days of activism, is the fact that there should be a collective responsibility in addressing gender-based violence. What role should civil society and also just ordinary citizens play in combating this crisis? Is there anything that we can do, whether inside or outside of our homes, to make sure that this scourge, this pandemic that has plagued South Africa for so long, is being tackled, and there are some tangible results that we can see that this shift in society.
So I think, what we all need to realize is to rekindle, go back to basics, go back to the spirit of Ubuntu, where it takes a village to raise a child. Your child is my child. And the element of care, that people can report it anonymously. You don't have to report giving your identifying particulars, but that we should become a society that is caring and responsible, not ignore and let it be. And of course, people are often afraid of being intimidated and affected or hurt physically because of the reporting. But we urge one and all, please, today it's somebody else, tomorrow it could be you. So we need to stand up, speak out, break the silence, and report.
Definitely. And just from your organization's point of view, the Teddy Bear Foundation, I'm sure, you guys have been working hard throughout the year, but this 16 days of activism is particularly a special time for an organization like yours. Are there, any, specific campaigns or any kind of, measures that you'll be taking this month to kind of further amplify the message of gender-based violence and to call for the protection of women and children in South Africa?
We do, as you said, it's 365 days, but during this period, we continue with our campaigns and programs in reaching out to communities, taxi ranks, faith-based organizations, recreation facilities, ECD centers, but we also reach out to the communities in general to alert them to safeguarding children during the festive and holiday period, not to let their guard down, to make sure that they engage and communicate with their children around the potential risks that they are surrounded by, that also not to take children unnecessarily to shopping malls, but to protect their children online as well and offline. So online, where children are going onto the internet and are engaging with people they don't know, providing details, personal details, where they could be communicating with potential pedophiles, child traffickers. So these are the kind of things that we are actually very actively engaged with during this period, to say to parents that if you are going to be going to a party, or it's not just outsiders that violate children. In 90% of cases, it's somebody that has a relationship or is known to the child. So to engage with the child, remind them consistently about acceptable, unacceptable behaviors, to tell the child if anything happens that the child is not comfortable with, they need to come and tell the parent, or have some coded language if they're going away on holiday, going to be spending time with friends and family, where the child can signal and say, I put their thumb up, show that something is not right. But those are the kind of things that we speak to in terms of protective and preventative mechanisms and measures to prepare and ensure that parents are proactive in protecting their children.
And I think we're going to leave it on that note. Doc, thank you so much for giving us your time. And it's going to be a very, very important, a few weeks as we try and spread this anti-gender-based violence message to South Africa and beyond.
Thank you.
There you go. That was the clinical director, Teddy Bear Foundation, Dr. Shaheda Omar. And we're having a discussion on the 16 days of activism. And particularly for me, one thing that is quite concerning is the fact that the message just doesn't seem to be landing. We've been talking about femicide in this country. We've been talking about gender-based violence, particularly, against women and children. And there's been so many numerous campaigns, whether from government, the private sector, the media in South Africa has done their bit, but it's just not landing. What more do you think can be done? As a society, as South Africa, what more can we do to make sure that, we kind of win this battle? The scourge of gender-based violence, ultimately becomes a thing of the past. Are there any interventions, or are there any ideas that you might have that you think we need to be implementing these things to make sure that gender-based violence becomes a thing of the past? You can engage with us. Our studio line is 011-680-0355, or you can send us a WhatsApp on 061-766-0355. Salam Media continues after this.
We are here in the middle of a Zahra neighborhood. The whole neighborhood is already destroyed. More than 17 towers are down. Here, as you can see, the firefighters trying their best to help. The people are still under the rubble. A lot of the people.
Join Hamza on his exclusive South African tour as he shares his personal experiences, never before seen footage, and powerful insights on the ongoing genocide in Gaza. This is more than just a talk. It's an invitation to witness Gaza through the lens of Hamza Sha'alan. Don't miss this opportunity to meet the photojournalist who brought Gaza's pain and perseverance to the world in its darkest moments. Follow Salam Media on social media pages for more on this tour and be part of the conversation.